Welcome to the Brand Clarity Podcast, hosted by Visions to Images and Susie Libertor. The Brand Clarity Podcast highlights several different topics, including entrepreneurship, franchises, and digital marketing trends. Visions to Images helps corporations and franchises with their branding, website, paid advertising, and digital marketing. Hello, everybody. Today on the podcast, I have Matthew Lyons with Disaster Blaster. So welcome. Tell us, Matthew, how you've gotten started in the franchise field.
Thank you. So I've been in the restoration industry for almost 30 years. And one of the things that we kind of looked at, we built Disaster Blaster ourselves. It's a family-run business. My father and I founded it together. And the more we kind of looked at the efforts that we had put into the service development, a lot of the back-end support, those sorts of things, we just felt that a lot of what we had structured was, for lack of a better word, kind of what you'd look for from a franchise system. So we felt that, because we had addressed some issues with the restoration space, we'd made some substantial improvements to the business model, that it made a lot of sense to go that route.
Yeah. So tell us kind of more about Disaster Blaster and how that really when did you start that? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Talk about when you started franchising too.
So we founded Disaster Blaster back in 2006, which is about 18 years. Prior to that, I was in the restoration space as well. And one of the things that I kind of looked at was, and my father did as well, was some of the seasonality issues that's kind of inherent in the restoration space, the lack of providing a true full service solution to customers. So when we kind of decided we wanted to go our own way here with Disaster Blaster, we wanted to address those. So the restoration space as a whole, most restoration companies offer between 3 and 4 services. We currently offer 13. We designed all of those services to build upon each other. So it allows us to provide more options and more services direct to the customer. So we're a better solution and asset to them. And it allows us to better scale and grow the business.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know you and I have touched on that before, the seasonality. There's always those issues. And obviously, if somebody has more damage from storm or water or fire at certain times of the year, it's going to affect your sales and overall productivity, et cetera. So it's smart of you to be able to bring in other services and cover those slower times as well, because even us working with restoration companies, we know sometimes, there's slow weeks, slow months until that storm or that fire or whatever happens, natural happens. Then it's like, oh, now I need somebody. And then now they go and search and do all of that. So yeah, I like that you have that.
Yeah. So as a result, we're not really seasonal as other restoration companies are, and we're not as reliant on those storm events or those damage. I mean, they're great when they come, and we certainly assist with those projects, but we're always busy.
What are the 13 services, real quick, if you can just identify those so we can know?
Sure. So water damage mitigation, fire and smoke damage cleaning, mold remediation, basement waterproofing, asbestos abatement, radon mitigation, biohazard and hoarding cleanup, infectious disease disinfection, meth lab remediation, duct cleaning, repairs and remodeling, and then we have a home check service where we're able to monitor and check on vacation properties and rentals.
Okay. That last one seems like it can be definitely unique to people because not many people are doing that, especially in the franchise industry. That's usually like a separate issue.
Yeah. And you might as well have the experts, being the people that are checking on those things.
What is the biggest problem you face in the franchise that you're creating?
So for the local restoration business, the biggest problem really is seasonality. And it is the over-reliance on insurance claim work. Insurance claims are great, but one of the issues with that is it's unpredictable.
Yes, absolutely.
So we did address both of those in our model. So we took what the experiences that we'd had with 30 years in the restoration space, and kind of corrected that for Disaster Blaster. So we have a very diverse service offering, but we have a very diverse customer base as well. So we do a lot of insurance claims. We do a lot of work for real estate transactions. We do direct to consumer work, commercial work. So as a result, whereas a lot of companies are in the restoration industry are very reliant on insurance claims, it's about 40% of our work, which creates a business that's much more predictable year over year, and easier to kind of plan and structure and staff.
Right, absolutely. And so with that, when people come to you, 60% would come to you without insurance then, without insurance claims?
Yeah, so about 60% of our work is uninsured work or unrelated to an insurance
Right.
claim. That we do have project financing that we're able to extend to our customers, and that's available through all of our franchisees as well. So when something isn't covered or something's a surprise, a lot of what we do isn't planned.
Right.
So that allows them to kind of extend that to a manageable payment as well for them. But it's a lot of commercial work. It's a lot of direct to consumer, and it's a lot of real estate.
I like that. I think that's important. I mean, again, going back to my experience and previous people that I've worked with, insurance claims are probably like number one for a lot of people, and they're a pain. And I've gone through actually 3 claims this year, and it's not looking pretty for my insurance. But it was because we had such bad storms. Like, it was just, there was nothing I could do, and I needed to do it. So I understand like the whole process, and insurance claims, it's a headache for all parties involved. But also, if they have that issue, it's good to know that they have the insurance capability.
Yeah, and we're insurance claims experts as well.
Exactly.
So our franchisees, my father, prior to getting into the restoration industry, worked in property claims, and actually worked his way up to the point where he was actually managing 120 some claims offices for a major carrier.
Amazing. Yeah.
So he's very experienced.
Knows. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so he
yeah.
brings that into the franchisees as well. Then, if they come in and say, well, this insurance claim is having an issue with this, he can kind of guide them and help them in that sense.
They get education and
Absolutely.
continuing support from the best.
Absolutely. No, I think that's important, as a franchise, understanding that you have that support. Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com. And so what was the number one problem you faced as you're growing the franchise, getting more leads and all of that kind of a component? What would you say, or not even leads, it could be anything, but what would you say is the biggest issue you've ran into?
Well, as of now, we're currently seeking franchise partners in 33 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. And one of the things, as an emerging brand, a lot of people look at it as potentially an added risk, or they have some concerns about going with an emerging brand. So that's absolutely something that we're constantly communicating and explaining, that while we're new to franchising, we are far from new to the restoration space. There's franchises out there that they found the company on Monday, and by Friday they're working on their FTD. That was not us. We spent 16 years, 17 years before we actually decided, what, we're going to look at franchising. And during that time, we perfected our model. We perfected our marketing, our service offering, the diversification of our customer base. We developed software that manages our office, that's proprietary, that's just ours. There's a lot went into this, that it wasn't something that we decided to do spur of the moment, or without proper planning. We're not, while we are an emerging brand, and I'm proud to be an emerging brand, because that means that there's so much more opportunity for franchisees.
Right.
They're not going to call us and say, like, hey, I want a prime territory in, Orlando, Florida, or Dallas. I have that available, which is
Right.
great. and I have the support and the experience
Absolutely.
that the established franchises don't have. You're not getting training and support from somebody that learned it in a book. You know, you're getting that from someone that does that every day.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously highlighting all of that in all of your sales and marketing process is so key and so important. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere, so it's like, hey, we've grown this and now we're franchising. We have all the experience, we have all of the tools. We didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to franchise, and the next day, like you said, you're franchising. Anybody who's franchising knows that it's an expensive and tedious process. And you have to go through so much FDB, you have to go through so much little pieces and set up the systems and the operations and everything. It's not just overnight for any company. I don't care who it is. There's just no way to do that. So, you know, talking about those things like you said and having that experience is just so key and so important. I feel like emerging brands can do really good if they're really, you know, successful already. Why not have people invest into it? I've never really ran into an issue, knock on wood, where somebody's an emerging brand and hasn't had much success.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I mean, we're very confident
Yeah.
in what we've designed,
Yeah.
and I think the value's definitely there.
So my next question for you is, what is the best marketing advice you would give somebody, or like what has worked best for you guys?
For our industry specifically, I think that one of the things that people miss in marketing a lot of the time, I think, is that not every industry or not every service is the same.
Right.
For a service that is, you know, such as ours, where it's not something that people expect to experience. They don't expect a pipe to break or
Right.
a roof leak. It's a lot of companies are still out there marketing, hey, you know, did you have a roof leak? Give us a call. The likelihood of you getting that ad in front of somebody that had a roof leak is infinitesimal. It's not really how marketing works. So what we have structured our marketing around is that we call it education first. So
Hmm.
we're constantly educating our community. We're constantly providing them with information and help and assistance. So we're who they think of when something does happen. They've already kind of made those connections between the issues that might be in their home or that they might run across and our brand. We're always kind of a step ahead. I think marketing
Right.
like that is much more effective.
Well, and to that point, I mean, marketing, digital media marketing is bombarded. Every time you go on social media of any platform, it doesn't matter what platform, people are trying to sell something, right? Whether it's subliminal or aggressive or whatever, they're trying to sell something. And to have that education and then funnel them in is a very specific process, because as you and I both know, there's so much going on social media, like I said, and they need to be educated and drawn in, and they're going to remember something more educational, more valuable, more fun,
Mhm.
those types of things that people can relate to, rather than just saying, oh, I saw some guy that had a bad roof damage, right? And people, they don't understand enough until it's too late, right? So that's why education is important now, because when the time comes, they're going to say, oh, I remember Disaster Blaster. Let's call them now, right? So it's that education piece to funnel them in. And that's what's really key. And I think that's key for like every industry, every company. But so many times people want sales. Granted, I
Mhm.
know how sales works, and it's good to put some sales and promotion stuff out, but
Mhm.
it's not all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you hit the nail on the head there. It's definitely a process
Yeah.
and a practice that you really have to kind of perfect, and we've put a lot of effort
Yeah.
into that. But yeah, I mean, you definitely you don't want to be hitting people over the head with ads. You want to nurture that.
So many people say, I want ads because I need leads. And I'm always like, okay, that's great. But we need to do like we need to do brand awareness first and get them in and get them interested and get them known from your name, etc., before we just dive right into all of the other stuff. So awesome. I'm glad that you have perfected it and that you are on the same page. That's amazing.
Thank you.
My last question for you is just kind of speaking about, if somebody wanted to franchise their business or is trying to, what advice would you give them?
So in my prior life, I owned a franchise. That impacted a lot of our planning and a lot of our thought process while we were developing the disaster blaster model. I think if you're working on franchising your business, one of the things you need to look at first and foremost is what your franchisees are going to need, want, and expect, and how you're going to deliver that. Because you're going to be dealing with people that may not be familiar with a lot of your services and processes. They're expecting you, they're relying on you to
Right.
learn how to do those things. As a franchisor, that is your responsibility. You have an obligation to be there for them when they need you. That would be probably my biggest recommendation to people that were considering franchising their business, just because it's such an integral part of the business.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. If somebody wants to learn more about you or franchising, where can they find you?
They can go to www.disasterblasterfranchise.com, or they can contact us at 302-242-1042.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. Two things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now, all of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.